I had gotten up that morning, I'd gone into the kitchen, went back into my bedroom. I'd gone in to answer the phone, but apparently I never answered the phone, like I had passed out. Luckily, I was home with my mom and dad.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If you was on your own at that point,
That's just it, I don't know.
My name is Reese, and I've lived with type 1 diabetes for over 4 years. I'm on a journey to meet other Vertex employees who live with the disease as well, to really truthfully understand what it's like to have type 1 diabetes.
So I woke up with paramedics standing over top of me.
There was this level of, honestly, guilt and shame.
I felt judged.
I just feel like I beat myself up for a lot of it.
All I want to do is curl up on the ground and cry about it.
I'm in Tampa about to meet Michelle and Michelle's friends. Socializing with type 1 diabetes it's a whole thing in itself. So I'm looking forward to speak to Michelle to see how she deals with these situations, because I've realized in this series so far, we actually haven't had a moment like this.
How are
Good
you?
to meet you.
Good to
Good,
see
thank
you.
How are you? Socializing and having type 1 diabetes, it's such a big thing of what we have, but when I'm with my friends, I barely talk about having it.
It's not really a part of our everyday conversation. They're aware of what I have, and they're both very affectionate smackers when they get excited about something, and they have a tendency to smack my arm, and I have to remind them, careful, there's the CGM's attached to my arm. But it's just part of the fun of, having it and having your friends know it, and, I'm comfortable with them knowing. But it's always front of mind at the same time, too.
Yeah. I want to meet them.
Yeah.
Great.
So let's go meet them.
All right. I was excited to meet Tiffany and Melanie and see how much they know about T1D since they've known Michelle for so long. How was it for you to live with?
It's inconvenient, and it does require a certain degree of attention and preparedness. I think it's the best way to describe it. Highs, you can kind of feel a little more thirsty, things like that. The lows, you might get a little more shaky. Things might make you a little more confused. Those are severe. Like with modern technology now, it alerts you. Your CGMs alert you to those severe highs and the lows to prevent you from getting there. Right.
Do you get anxious of any of the complications that could happen, or have you had any?
No, I have not. I've been very fortunate. I don't look forward to going to the doctors, though, because I always feel like I'm failing a test or whatever, like what are they going to kind of question or lecture me about this time?
Wow, that's such an interesting point you made about you sometimes feel like you're failing a test when you see your doctor. Because just a minute ago, I asked Michelle, what's your glucose levels? And I am going to say you felt like you were slightly high, but you were conscious of showing that on camera. And is it a sense of feeling, embarrassed, or like you're not perfecting it?
Maybe it's probably that you're not perfect with your day-to-day management, but type 1 is very tricky. It's hard to be perfect 24/7. Even with all of modern technology, you're going to have your highs and you're going to have your lows.
After one of your episodes that, you're like, were you going to call an ambulance, or did you call an ambulance, or what happened?
Oh, it was just a different type of insulin that I was on, and I just probably wasn't as mindful of what I was doing, and it kicked in the middle of the night. Everything was really shaky, and I just couldn't kind of get my legs under me, if you will, and so I was like pulling out the drawer looking for my glucose tablets, and for some reason I had them in the bathroom. I think probably because I was getting ready for a trip, so I was making sure that my travel packs are all filled up. It was a chore to get from where my bedroom is to where they were on the counter in my bathroom. It was just difficult.
I have to say, it is amazing to know all the behind the scenes things that you deal with because you never let us know.
I mean, it's inconvenient to me, and that's enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be inconvenient to the people I'm with either.
Hearing Michelle describe T1D as an inconvenience and not wanting to put this on even some of her closest friends makes me think how easy it is for some of us with T1D to downplay its effects. I think it's hard for it not to be all-consuming, no matter how much we fight against it.
I've lived with it for 38 years now. I was 11.
38 years
Yes, I'm
ago.
that old, Reese.
That's what kind of scares me in a sense, because I got diagnosed just over 4 years ago.
Oh.
And it is quite like, oh, whoa, you've had it for 38 years, but still had a very dangerous low after living with it for so many years. I think that's what this disease always fascinates me. You think you got it, got my glucose, exactly, and then you just get punched. Yeah, and
Quickly.
I often find it very difficult to explain, even to my friends, how it actually feels, because it is one of those things, if I speak to my friends, they're like, that sounds terrible. And then you meet someone with it and you have this connection.
It just requires you to be incredibly aware and hypervigilant.
As we continued our conversation outside, it became clear that while Tiffany and Melanie are familiar with T1D, they don't really know what goes into managing it day to day, especially when it comes to the constant reminders and background decisions.
I think with the CGMs, I mean, you sort of just become not obsessed with it,
Yes.
but it just becomes part of your routines. I mean, we're all on our phones 24/7, so it's like, oh, I got a text message. Well, while my phone's open, let me see where I'm at.
It's like I'm about to do something. Do you think you could guess how many times I've scanned?
Like you've manually.
Yeah.
2,800, yeah.
Yeah, 2,800.
Yeah.
And that 2,800 is essentially 2,800 more decisions
Yeah, for
that
sure.
you've got to make in your brain. And that's where I think you say inconvenience. I think as I've spoke to more people, it's kind of like mental exhaustion.
Yeah.
Because it's just thinking. So you basically work 2 full-time jobs.
This is partly why I finally did the pump, because it's so many decisions in one day. It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
It's an inconvenient balancing act.
Well, Michelle, thank you so much. And thank you to Tiffany and Melanie for having me around. I'm going to see you tomorrow
Yes.
at yours.
Yes.
And it's going to be interesting because you're packing for another adventure that you're going on.
I have a trip coming up.
Yes. So I can't wait to hear more of your story. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys learned some more as well about Michelle.
For sure.
Very much so.
It was great to see Michelle in her element with her friends, but I was excited for the next day, one-to-one. Michelle and I have a lot more to discuss about her experiences with T1D and especially her severe hypoglycemia over the years and how that has impacted how she prepares for her travels. She is always flying. I want to understand the extra steps she has to take every day and how she stays ready for any unexpected turns.
Someone that travels so much, you must have to be so prepared and on top of everything you need.
Yeah, I mean, you do. I'm thinking forward to the trip that I have later this week, and then additional trips that I have the week after, and knowing the timing of when I have to switch out either my CGM or my pump, dealing with TSA and make sure they're not going to question what this is in your bag, and they'll pull me aside because something, and they'll see that little thing on my thigh or on my abdomen, and I'm like, that's my insulin pump, and 9 times out of 10, they're all like, okay.
Yeah, same.
They're so used to it at this point, but it's still one of those things where it's like, okay, I have to explain what's going on.
Yeah, an added thing onto the list,
Yes.
basically.
And speaking of lists,
This is just a quick pack, just for 2 nights. You always have your medications, so I have kind of a little bit of everything in here. So I have the skin tape tag that helps the adhesive stick. I've got my alcohol swabs. I've got a vial of my glucose tablets, travel size. I have an insulin pen. I have the pen needles, if you will. I also have, it's like a rescue med, if you will. And so my doctor prescribed that just so that I always have it if I need it Even though this is my guest room, it's basically my packing room unless I have company. I basically leave my suitcase open.
So you take all of this on every trip you go on?
Every trip, yeah.
And how many trips do you go on a year?
Oh gosh, I am probably on the road maybe 60+% of the year.
Michelle's got packing down to a science, and for how much she travels, she has to. But it also emphasises another way that T1D shows up, interrupts, and complicates every part of life. So I wanted to dive deeper on Michelle's T1D over the last 38 years.
At 11 years old, being diagnosed, you know, I know it's a long time ago,
Right.
but do you remember some of the feelings that you had felt?
I think I was probably angry. And I was like, this is stupid. Why do I have to deal with this? You know, whatever. I hated going to the doctor. You know, when you have a diagnosis like that, then it just sets in I hate the doctor now. I don't want to go to doctors anymore. You know, that was probably my feeling, was anger, I think.
Maybe we talk about the first time that you had quite a dangerous low.
I was much younger, towards the end of my middle school years, I think it was, and I don't actually remember anything other than I had gotten up that morning, I'd gone into the kitchen, and all I remember is I woke up, I went back into my bedroom, apparently. I'd gone in to answer the phone, but apparently I never answered the phone, like I had passed out. So I woke up with paramedics standing over top of me. Luckily, I was home with my mom and dad.
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
If you was on your own at that point,
That's just it. I don't know. You know? I don't know what you do if you're on your own. I mean, I don't know what would have happened. I don't like to think about it. I don't dwell on it because I can imagine nothing good comes of that.
There was a second time.
We were in London visiting. If I remember correctly, it was the morning we were meant to leave, and I didn't wake up. Like I was just, my low was so low, like I was just, my mom couldn't get me to wake up. Once again, I woke up with strange paramedics standing over me, you know, fists swinging, because I'm like, what the hell is going on? Brought me to, I was fine, you know, got on the plane, business as usual.
Your low that happened recently, which you mentioned when we were with your friends, do you mind talking through that?
It came on so quick, and it was early morning, where my alarm actually had gone off in the middle of it because I was getting ready. You know, I would have been getting up anyway, but it just, when I woke up, I felt fine, and then as I was sitting up and when I went to get out of bed, it was like the low just kicked in so very quickly. And because I was older, I mean, as an adult, that one resonates with me much more, you know, because I'm also thinking through the fact that I've 2.5 flights of stairs in my home, and, you know, what would I do if, say, like I had left my phone on the 2nd floor and my bedroom's on the 3rd floor, and like, it definitely makes me much more hyper aware. That was a conversation with my doctor because we had done some adjusting, and we went and had to adjust more because of what had happened. I don't know that I'm a picture perfect type 1 diabetic by any stretch. Part of it is stubbornness because I won't let it interfere with things I want to do. You know, if my friends say, hey, let's go to New Orleans, let's go to Mardi Gras, it doesn't dictate if I'm going to say yes or no to an activity.
Yeah.
It's just such a part of my life, and has been for the majority of it, that it just doesn't, I'm probably not as fixated on it as someone like you who's still relatively recently diagnosed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you have it yourself or you are living with someone who has it, you probably don't really understand what your day-to-day looks like. You know, it's probably not anything you've given any thought to. And for me, my day-to-day seems relatively normal, but again, it's because 38 years later, it's just part of who I am at this point. But other people might look at it and go, okay, wow, it really is more challenging. It is a quality of life issue.
Michelle's not the only one to frame T1D as an inconvenience, and we've both learned to become accustomed to it in some ways. But if I can take anything away from speaking with Michelle and her friends, it's that our experience with T1D, Michelle's life-threatening experiences with severe hypoglycemia, are more than an inconvenience. They impact our quality of life, and that should be talked about more. We figure out how to live our lives despite T1D, but those 2,800 extra decisions, they never go away.
I've learned an incredible amount about this disease that everyone in this series has and has been affected by and is learning how to manage it and navigating their journeys with it. And it's been like a weight off my shoulders in a sense to just understand how everyone has their own, we have this shared disease, but everyone has their own way of living with it. And I've got so much to take from every person that we spoke to, and they've been honest enough to share what it's truly like to live with type 1 diabetes. So I'm very honored to have made this, and I have a lot to take away and think about.